Today's video is all about Helium. Own the air. Helium allows anyone to build and own massive wireless networks. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what? Let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. And the question is Helium an opportunity? Guys, today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the project, of course, looking into all the little details that should make us fundamentally bullish. We're going to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and obviously try to gain some information, some fundamental information, whether we should be holding this in our portfolio. Guys, we're going to be taking a retail perspective as usual, making sure that the team and all the documentation and communication that they offer gives us a clear picture from a retail perspective, right? If they're going to gain mass adoption, it's important that they make it very, very friendly for the retail investor. We're going to start off by using the website. The website obviously is going to be our main platform going forward, but we're going to dabble into many other tabs and many other sources to see, to get a clean picture, as clear as a picture as we can. All right, guys, so let's begin. By the way, before we move on, I checked the timestamps below because I do have a summary, a quick summary where I summarize all of what is being spoke about here on this video, including a an infographic that can be used as reference for future. Okay, let's begin. Let's see what we got here. Own the air, fairly interesting, and I like the imagery. I like everything. The landing page is nice and clean. Wireless world. Explore the world's largest decentralized wireless network. Okay, so it is the largest decentralized wireless network. Okay, so that's a very important thing. So far, we're building an idea of what it is. Join over 366,000 active hotspots. Share your internet and earn. So right away, as you can see, we're quickly building an idea of what the project is starting to offer. We see mobile hotspots and Internet of Things hotspots. So I can already see two-tiered system here happening with Helium. Now, all of a sudden, you start to see some of the hardware, which is obviously going to be important if we're going to be sharing our internet and talking about hotspots and so on and so forth. So as you can see, hotspots set your internet free. Helium isn't just a network, it's a movement. Each hotspot is a beacon of change, challenging an industry built on high prices and poor coverage. So this is it, right? You're getting this hardware. This hardware is going to allow you to participate into this new movement, powered by the people, not corporations. It expands access, providing that connectivity can be fair, stronger, and truly belong to everyone. So in this case, what we're looking at is a hardware that's going to allow us to continue connecting with one another within the internet. So pretty interesting. Helium Partners, movie star. Guys, if you know who that is, that's a big North American chain, particularly south of the border, which is, a pretty good partnership. In fact, they have lots of good relationships that we're going to speak about in this video. So let's keep on going now. Mobile hotspots, IoT hotspots, as I mentioned, a little bit of repetition here, but it's all good. Convert your own, bring your existing hardware to Helium through self-serve or our Plus program, which is pretty good because if you already have the hardware, why do you need to go and purchase another one, which ultimately provides less friction to get involved. I appreciate that. And I can see the two different devices right there. Keep on going down. By the way, I like the cleanliness. I like the way the sharpness of this website. It's very nice, straightforward, clean. 2 networks, 1 vision. 2 networks currently exist to Helium IoT, a global low-powered, long-range, this is very important, network for machines, devices, and sensors, and Helium Mobile, a transformative cellular network that can scale into neighborhoods, venues, and businesses. So you have to kind of like understand that there's 2 systems here, one that is more for a bigger picture, a landscape type of deal, the global, right? And then the Helium, which is more the local, which is Okay, pretty good. Makes sense. Mobile networks, IoT, built for things, Internet of Things. So we're going to be touching upon these two miniature networks, as you can see. As we go down, we have the HNT token. And as you guys know, this deep dive is not necessarily a tech deep dive. It is a crypto deep dive where we're going to focus significantly on HNT, which is the token that is used to power this entire agenda. This whole infrastructure that they got built here is going to be powered by HNT. Helium flips the traditional wireless infrastructure model and puts you in charge via the HNT token. So it is a cryptocurrency which fuels the growth of Helium network and rewards participants for helping to build a more connected future. So you can already get an understanding already. You're going to have these pods, these nodes per se, that are sharing internet, allowing you to connect with one another and share your internet connection, and then ultimately get rewarded for it, right? That's the whole concept here. Case studies, different case studies. You can see how other individuals are using it and have successfully leveraged their technology, which is good. And the store coming soon, maybe a bit of swag, and then the footer, lots of important details. The blog, we're going to talk about that, and various different things from business. Helium Plus, cover your Wi-Fi network, and the mobile, IoT, HNT. You can see there's a lots happening here, and socials included. Okay, so I did take the time to dig through a lot of this to get a nice understanding of what we're about. But the website does a great job. The landing page here gives us everything we kind of need to get our first understandings of what Helium is. Now, what I do want to do is quickly get into the reality of what HNT is, like as far as a token, because this is a crypto deep dive, right? So we gotta kind of focus on that. We'll talk about the tech again just a little bit to just kind of understand what the tiers are and how the tokenomics fits in with their product offerings. But I do want to make it very clear that HNT is the main token. However, there are other tokens that are related to the Helium ecosystem and tech stack that they have going on. HNT is the economic engine powered by the future of global connectivity. Instead of a handful of corporations controlling $3 trillion telecommunication industry, right? HNT flips the model on its head. It gives anyone the ability to own a piece of its and participate in building the Helium network. So in this case, it's exactly that. If you want to participate by expanding the network, you're going to get rewarded. Okay, so learn more about HNT. I'm curious about what this tab is. We'll get that open and see. Once I'm done scrolling through here, we can go touch upon it. So there's 1 million plus daily users, data transfer, all kinds of movies streamed per day. So there's a lot of access already, a lot of user base, who uses it, all kinds of different businesses, local communities, as we spoke about already. Try not to go over the repetitious aspect of what I'm speaking about here. I'm trying to get to the new stuff like right here. We have HNT, which is the native token, which is a compatible running on Solana blockchain. They did migrate to the Solana blockchain about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, but a while back. Some argue that it was a great decision. Some argue that it isn't. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, they are freshly allocated into the Solana network, which is a growing and strong network. And, with the gas fees nice and cheap, I think that for the most part, it was a decent decision. Helium network, the community growing, the world's largest decentralized wireless network. And then the Helium mobile. So you have the Helium network and the Helium mobile, with the company with phone plans on the Helium network and T-Mobile. There's a lot of different relationships here. Like I said, Movie Star, we have T-Mobile, have AT&T, a lot happening there. Okay, guys, and we'll talk about that. How does HNT work? So basically, reward network builders. Anyone with a Helium hotspot can earn HNT by building the HNT network and connecting nearby devices, the Internet of Things, right, such as phones, and more devices that is connected, the more HNT you can earn. So also using the network, network, use the Helium network, HNT gets burned. So the more you use the network, the more HNT gets burned. So it's a mine and burn type of mechanism here, mint and burn type of mechanism where, the more the network flourishes, the more you can expect that HNT tokens will get burned. That means every time devices send data, HNT is removed from circulation. The more the Helium network is used, the more HNT is burned. So that's basically its burn mechanism, reducing supply over time as the network succeeds. This is a very healthy way of burning HNTs. However, one may argue, but what about if it doesn't, it's not getting the volume and the use, right? What happens to the emissions? And this is obviously the case. Are people getting rewarded if it's not being used? It's not it won't happen. If people are not using the HNT network, the Helium network, there's not going to be that much emission because the emissions is based on reward structure of the use of helium. And in that case, it will slow down, but so will the burning mechanism. This is very interesting. This is a nice way of keeping equilibrium, and then a healthy way of keeping inflation at bay, because it's not a proof of work, but it kind of works as proof of coverage. Whereas the nodes that provide the best coverage, internet coverage, are going to get better rewards, right? That's the whole concept. And at the same time, being on Solana, it's a proof of stake scenario where obviously you're going to be able to stake up your tokens, earn passively, and still engage in their governance model, right? So this is all part of what HNT has to offer right now. We'll get through this in a little bit more as I go through documentation as best as I can. Tokenomics, as you can see, this is very vague, but there's basically saying over the next little while, particularly front-loaded within the first 5, maybe 10 years, you'll start to see the majority of the tokens being released, and eventually will flatline where inflation is going to get reduced, where we see there's a 2-year halving schedule. So HNT follows a predictable 2-year halving schedule, reducing emission over time. It's not a proof of work, but it is in such a way where the reward structure, it gets halved every 2 years. No pre-mine. HNT was launched with the Helium network in 2019. There was no pre-mine. So although it transferred to Solana, there was no pre-mine. So it's not like you have some heavyweights holding all the tokens, which is, obviously important. We have the hard cap. HNT is currently deflationary with the hard cap of 223 million HNTs. I just want to make it very clear now that I'm speaking about all these concrete numbers, due to its structure, governance structure, as a decentralization of the organization, a lot of different ideas can be brought to the table, in the sense that things can be voted on, things can be changed based on this. Now, the hard cap maybe can be changed in the future, causing maybe infinite supply, looking similar to a model like maybe an Ethereum-based project where you got infinite supply and so on, and the burning mechanism is what you rely on. But so far, this is where they got. So what I'm trying to say here is, because they have, governance, the token holders are going to be very, very involved. And in that case, everything can be voted on, which is good. Any ideas can be put forward, and it can be voted on. So growing demand, data demand, okay, of course that's the case. And the burn rate, 52K is burnt. The last HNT burned the last day, so it is actively burning, especially as they have that equilibrium burn and mint equilibrium model. Guys, we're not going to get into too much detail there, but it is a very, very important thing. We'll open up a new tab. Let's see what we got there. Resources, I got documentation. You got the coin market cap and the community, the Helium community. We'll talk about their marketing and their community in a second. So we definitely got a great idea already what this project is about. Okay, so it's very clear so far. Let's keep on going. Who uses it? This is one of the tabs I just opened, by the way. A little bit of repetition. In fact, this is the same page. It's kind of weird. It is what it is. Now, I opened this also one about the burn and mint equilibrium. So this is a generic Masari page that explains what it is. Feel free to read this in a little bit more detail. But in summary, it is a structure or a mechanism of which burning and minting reaches equilibrium, so that there's not a lot of minting happening. because if there is too much minting happening, that means too much circulating supply, and therefore there will be dilution pressure, basically pressure on the price. So in this case, you need something to counterbalance it, which is the burn mechanism that basically takes tokens out of circulation, and that way you keep a healthy equilibrium of supply and demand, right? You don't want oversupply because it's going to bring down the price. So you want to keep demand hot, but at the same time you need to make sure that there's some tokens there to grease the wheels. You want activity, you want action, right? You want a participation on the network, and the only way to do that is to give some and then kind of take some, but take some away, so that way the overall value of the token goes up. It's basic economics, supply and demand, guys. All right, so let's keep on going on. That's that. Feel free to check that page out and pause and read and do your thing. But as you can see, there is a docs page that they do have. To be honest, I don't know how I stumbled upon this page and where I found it. As I was doing research, I must have opened the tab, so I can't even say where you can get this, but it is a very basic, let's say, Git book. I don't even think it's a Git book, but it is what it is. It's very basic, very streamlined, and it kind of gives you a little bit of what I've already talked about. So we have the long range WAN, which is part of their product offerings. Um, and network for the Internet of Thing devices, and then the cellular, right, for the Wi-Fi network for mobile and connectivity. That's their two main things, and then obviously both of them require these hotspots, other like kind of like nodes where they're actively doing something, and then you get rewarded for that something that it's doing, which is basically sharing internet connectivity, right? So that's basically it. Um, and then you can go quickly to see what the mobile, so that you have the mobile network. In this case, the Helium mobile network is a decentralized a carrier offload network. The Helium mobile hotspots and covered Wi-Fi networks, while owned and deployed by the community. So community can get involved and basically own and deploy these within the network. Connect to a common core, which gives subscribers from various mobile carriers automatic access to the network in return for the work done by the radio deployer. So basically, it's about sharing. Hotspots, different hotspots, and your reward structures. Hotspots can earn rewards for both proof of coverage. That's their dual consensus mechanism that they got. Obviously, it's a proof of stake, but they also have the proof of coverage. Very similar to what a proof of work does per se, but not really, because really what you're doing here is showing and rewarding the best individuals that provide the best internet connection based on their location, and the stipulations behind their commitments to the community within the Helium network. So the better they offer, the better that they provide internet connection, the better the rewards. Basically, rewards dependent on the readiness and quality of the service by a radio. Okay, so again, I really do recommend that you guys read this if you're really interested in the tech. I'm doing my best to summarize and simplify all of this, but that's the basic concept. You have these hotspots, they provide internet connections, you share the internet connections, and you get rewarded based on the quality of that. And again, more detail here, data only mobile hotspots, lots. It gets very technical, hardware wise, and so on, how to get it done, how to set it up. And you can see all these little details here. Guys, I'm not getting into it. This is not a tech review, but you get what I mean. Now, the Internet of Things, IoT, includes this long-range WAN concept, because the long-range WAN network is a vital component of the network, responsible for device management, messaging, routing, and integration with application servers. So servers play a crucial role in ensuring the scalability, reliability, and interoperability of the long-range WAN network. So basically how it works, okay? So as you can see, a nice little diagram. You have a sensor, you have your hotspots, you have your routers, and then you have your servers. This is how it works. And then you have your network servers with the long range WAN, and so on and so on. And then you have your blockchain technology that basically tracks all of the transactions within this whole system. Okay, so it is what it is. I think it's a fairly good read, a fairly interesting read. Find an LNS provider. As you can see, there are many providers here if you're interested, and a lot of different pieces of information, tokens, Let's talk about tokens for a second. I think we need to stay here for a bit. I'm hoping that I can get some good information here. But we got the HNT, so it's a hotspot. So you get rewarded. That's how you get rewarded. Operation, deploying, maintaining network coverage. You can see the economical concepts here, daily mint and burn, and you can see how everything kind of stays within equilibrium, supply and demand wise. Max supply, you can see that there is, we already talked about that. 223 million HNTs. And then you can see the emissions starting August 1st, 2019, all the way down here. You start to see the August 1st, 2028. So, the halving is the 2-year halving definitely does reduce the circulating supply over time, as you guys know, or the emissions over time, and so on. So, data credits, that's another almost like tokenized concept. Okay, so this is very important. So data credits are basically USDT pegged. They're a utility token derived from HNT. And I'm going to tell you this. There are a few tokens that are within this whole ecosystem. Makes things a bit complicated, to be honest. I'm not crazy about dual, triple token systems. They provide a lot of ambiguity and confusion, especially to newcomers, as you don't know what to be buying and what would actually, be worth your while, and things get lost in confusion. So this is very important. So again, the data credits are USD pegged utility token derived from HNT and is used to pay fees on the Helium network. So these credits, these data credits, is only produced by burning HNT. This HNT to DC relationship is based on a design commonly called a burn and mint equilibrium and intends to allow for the supply of HNT to respond to network usage trends. So when as the network is used, whether it's used a lot or less, it doesn't matter, because as it's used, you get more burning, and when more burning happens, you get more data credits. And with those data credits, you basically, that's an incentive. You almost get a recycling effect. So as again, there's more here about the halving, more concepts behind the emissions, and so on. What I do see here is something, the HNT, here we go. Initial net emissions counted on HNT burned for data credits, but now counts for all HNT burned, but does not include HNT not emitted. So what's important here is you have to understand that all these token systems do provide a level of ambiguity here. Again, it's all about understanding that you have a token that does one thing and the other token that does another. And I'm glad to see that they have a full page here to discuss it in a little bit more detail. But the data credits are just are the mechanism by which all Helium network usage is paid for. It's like a currency that is being paid for, and they chose to keep it stable because it makes more sense. You don't want to go one day and pay for services, and based on volatility, it might be more expensive than the next day. You want stability there to pay for the services. But as you pay for services, again, you get more use case of the network, and more use case of the network means more burning, and then the more data credits, and the recycling begins round and round and round. For further reading, again, burn and mechanism, it's all there in the documentation. We already touched upon that. Again, the usage, you can see how much more usage they've been. As the network grows, you can imagine there's going to be a lot more usage. Now, they have the IoT, see the IoT and the mobile usage section to see exactly the amount of usage and onboarding that has been happening last little while. It has been increasing. Okay, obviously, one could argue that it needs to increase more, but it's going and doing its thing. But it is what it is. And then a lot of us start to think about what does Solana have to do with this? Well, the Helium network runs on Solana blockchain, and it's an extremely fast and scalable and low cost blockchain. That's one of the reasons why they chose to move over Solana. If you guys remember when they migrated, the friction that Ethereum and all basically Ethereum brought to the table caused a lot of projects to kind of realize, we need to get something where we can get a lot more freedom on chain instead of being confined by gas fees and such. So that's that. Solana accounts and rent. That's that. Sol swap. You got a lot happening there on Sol. and that's about it. You got network data, lots of little things, but most of the things that for us looking at this tech is basically straightforward. It's not too bad. Okay, let's keep on moving on. This is another white paper that I was able to find. Lots of documentation, guys, from a tech perspective. Physics, mathematics, you got all kinds of stuff there. So if this is up your alley, guys, feel free to go check that out. If you really are into the back end of how the whole thing works, guys, this is a legit structure and tech stack they got here. This is not no Mickey Mouse thing. Okay, so just understand that from that understanding of the tech stack, it requires a little bit more detail there. Okay, so let's move on. We got to talk about the blog and their socials. Okay, so you know what? Well, maybe what we'll do, just push this aside a sec, and we'll look at their blog in a second. But from their governance perspective, guys, I'm glad to see that they have governance happening for their mobile and their IoT. Now, from a mobile token perspective, they have mobile tokens as well, and they have their IoT token. There's a lot of different tokens, and then they have their data credits, which are also important, and then you have this scenario where you need to have a particular token in order to participate in the governance. And you get those tokens once you stake them up, right? Once you have them locked up, you get these tokens, and they're called VEHNTs, right? So they're liquid in the form that with those tokens or that representation, 'cause it's not actual a token because they're not tradable, but they're representations as far as how much or what your voting power is here. You can see you have HIP, the Helium proposals are here, and you can come in and vote. So you can see there's a lot of them here, guys. Relocation mobile mapping, Helium release proposal, mobile data eats first, working groups and things like that. So they're trying to decentralize the whole organization as best as possible, and then all these proposals are readily available and open. And then I'm going to slowly transition here into say this is usually how things work when you're talking about so the VE IoT, sorry guys, VE mobile, VE HNT. You can see that we have like these tokens, but they're not tokens, the representations here. So if you stake up, you put your tokens on here, your actual HNTs or your mobiles or your IoTs right here. You can get these VE versions, and then start voting. Okay, so that's on a side note. But the truth is that as you come in here and start participating, you see that the need for a roadmap starts to dissipate. And this is a very common thing that I've been seeing in the last little while, where we're seeing a lot of projects that are based on governance and have DAOs and so on. They just run with what the proposals are offered, and this is the roadmap. And it's up to you to just follow along with when it's going to be completed and what's going to be followed through with. The problem is that it's very hard for a newcomer to really wrap their mind about where things are going. So I tend to still give the responsibility for the team to make proper roadmap or proper communication about what is being voted on, maybe, and what can be happening in the next little while based on this voting process, right? But again, if you're really interested, it's very easy to come in here and check out what's in the pipeline. Okay, very clear. So back to the blog. I like to see blogs, especially the ones that are active. I think of vlogs nowadays or blogs nowadays as outlets of information, but more importantly, information that can be used as educational, right? It's not a very viral way of absorbing information, but it's a way of absorbing information that can lead to very good lessons. And reading documentation and reading and looking at graphs and charts and things like that to help you understand. And I'm glad to see, okay, their last post was October 29th, but I'm glad to see that they have a lot happening. You can see that there's some good information. AT&T in thousands of locations across America. HNT buyback and digital asset treasury exploration. Okay, Mexico, movie star, huge, huge. That's a big one, guys. That's a big AT&T. That's the AT&T of Mexico. That's a big one, right? So, and they have a big population, right? Network coverage in Mexico. That's a big one. A floating secret job. Okay. How Tim Laws connect. Okay. Nashville and beyond. So guys, go read all these. They're good. I would have liked to see a little bit more action there. Let's give them a follow to see what they get coming out next. But you get what I mean. It's nice to see these. At least they have some social outlet where they can communicate some of their ideas and educate. Now I went on their X account to see what they got going on, and they have a community on X, which is good, which is amazing, given the fact. Okay, I have to bring this out now, given the fact that essentially they decided to put their Telegram community and their Discord community to rest. The most common way the crypto space communicates and builds community is through Telegram and Discord. Um, and they decided to not continue it. I find that to be a poor decision in my view. Not to say that they can't have an X community. Also, it's just abandoning ship on those two is a bold statement, and I'm wondering why. Now, I'm totally aware that it is very difficult to keep up with, such communities during, times where the markets are not really fruitful, but that's where you show strength and commitment. And I know it's hard to, deal with all of that emotion, but you have to deal with it, not abandon ship. And I hope that the community in general doesn't look at it like that, because it does look like that. In these communities, you don't really get a lot of communication, banter back and forth. You don't allow, it's not very easy to complain and ask questions and that kind of stuff. As you can see, you got a few here and there, but nowhere near as you would get as real time community involvement like a Telegram or a Discord. Okay, so it is what it is. This is what you got. A few retweets and posts here by this individual Bob. I'm not sure what's going on here, but that's that. And then you got some posts regarding, their actual social. Their socials are okay. 223 followers, 1,000 followers, sorry. And then their community, they got 467 members. I don't see that working out for them. They should have stuck with Discord, and maybe if anything, said, you know what, maybe make Telegram announcement only. I would respect that decision. That's fine, but to abandon ship on both is not a good idea. And then here we have pinned comments, Helium hotspots. They're all going up, daily users, and so on and so forth. And as I'm scrolling down, I'm seeing that they got some posts 22 hours ago, 100 likes, 10 reposts, 100 likes, almost 16, 100 likes. It's very 100 like, always 100, always very close to 100. That's not a very good thing, a good sign. Helium is rebuilding connectivity. We're leading wireless revelation with HNT. That's good. Scott Segal, CEO. I was trying to find some information on the dude. Couldn't find much other than, a few, some of these um, AMAs or things like that he does, which is good. But I couldn't find them on LinkedIn or anything. Your mini cell tower at LA Fitness, this is good. So basically, there's an incentive. To the Helium hotspot in LA Fitness is in California, serves 600 users daily. This is big, guys. So yeah, maybe they don't have a roadmap, an official roadmap. Maybe they don't have a completely doxed LinkedIn profile with all their core teams and all this. Maybe they don't, right? But they have some active use cases right now in global use cases. So yeah, guys, it is what it is. You got to make some critical decisions on what the facts are, right? Pivot back to DPIN. It is a DPIN protocol. It is the infrastructure, no doubt. Unique. Let's be real about that. We'll talk about that in a second, but it is a unique one. And it is what it is. Helium isn't just building a network; it's taking a shot at a $4 trillion industry. Okay, so they got a lot happening here. Watch the whole interview here. So this is one of the core team members, by the way. Um, yeah, he does have experience in the industry. And then you have the Helium House private event in Dubai. That's good. They're getting social. And then the active, the data reached is up, up, up. As you can see, it's growth, guys. It's growth. It's more burning. It's more action. It's more use case, more utility, more reason for individuals to hold the token. It is what it is. Okay, guys. So pretty good from that front. And some of the relationships, the Helium Mobile and and you can see the Helium partner and Don telco takeover, expand decentralized internet. They got a lot of good ones, right? And they got here the Dish Network. That's another one. 300,000 hotspots reached with Dish Network. That's a big one. And there's a few others. I'm just going to go with a few here. The People's Network, T-Mobile. That's a big one, of course. You got lots of action there. So some good stuff. However, guys, this is, as you guys know, I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. It is very important to understand that to make a video like this without you know evoking emotions is very difficult, but I have to present the actual factual information. So, although these relationships are great, the problem is that the Helium Foundation or the Helium team has been accused in the past of, fabricating some relationships in the past. And I'm not trying to harp on this and spread FUD, but this is something that we have to understand because some people are still salty about this concept, and we have to address it. You can't just put it under the rug. It's either you accept it and move on, or you don't, right? And this is important. So in the past, the company that developed Human Network alleging that the company raised millions of dollars from investors through unregistered sales of securities. This is what they were accused of: electronic devices that mine one of three Nova Labs crypto assets. By the way, Nova Labs, we're going to talk about in a second who they are. Again, they are the people behind Helium. The lawsuit also alleged that Nova Labs misled investors regarding multiple high-profile partnerships. Again, guys, I'm not trying to spread FUD, but they do have a history here of doing that. You got to really take it as it is. Agreed to dismiss unregistered security claims, and Nova Labs chose to resolve the case by basically agreeing to pay a $200,000 no admit to deny a settlement, right? So, guys, again, it is what it is. Maybe there was a lack of communication. I don't know, give them the benefit of the doubt, but I doubt what they got going on here now is not, I believe that it's factual. Right? So it is what it is. Now, if we continue going on, this is the team. This is the team that's behind it. And as you know, I like looking at their LinkedIn pages. Unfortunately, a co-founder. I couldn't find anything on them, but I was able to find something on Frank, on the COO, the CTO, and I think there was another one that I was able to find some information on. It is what it is, okay? So it's important to actually get to know the team as best as we can. Sometimes I respect their privacy, obviously. Privacy is very, very important. As you guys know, I value my privacy at its peak. But this is a big team, 136 associated members. Okay. This is from the Helium network itself. Now you have to understand the Helium network is one thing, and you can see that it's a full-on team. You can show more results, and you can see they got lots of members and so on. You can keep on going, lots and lots of members. But the actual Nova Labs is what interests a lot of people because Nova Labs is a telecommunications company that basically is behind all the technology that Helium builds. So it's like a layer. It's a layer, the sub layer of Helium. And that's something that kind of bothers me because when you start looking at Nova Labs, it creates technologies and services that shape the future of connectivity built on the Helium network. So they separated their technology from Helium, and Helium is just a crypto project, this feels, which is fine. It's great. I understand from a regulation perspective why they would want to do that. Okay, just understand, read between the lines. I think it's a fair strategy. 53 members, but as I go through these members, I don't see, the core members. I want to know more about these dudes right here. Like these are co-founders. Where do they come from? What are their strengths? What do they bring to the table and so on. Now, I do know that, a team goes far beyond the founders. So a lot of the times in other projects that I've covered in the past, remember over 130 deep dives that I've released, I've noticed that some teams, the founders have other strengths that are not tech related, right? They could be, just great speakers, great overall businessman, VCs, that whatever it is, and techies in different categories and so on. But then they hire the right talent, and that's very important. So let's look at some of the talent, guys. I'm not going to be able to go through all of it, and I apologize to the team if I can't get through, if I missed a few people, but it is what it is. I go through the LinkedIn account so that I can get as much information as I can. So Frank, no one is an expert. I agree. I agree. Why would we assume so? Because there's always something to learn. So I appreciate that. Helium Inc. is now Nova Labs. You see what I mean? So they rebranded Helium Inc. And don't get that confused. It doesn't mean the Helium project. It's the company behind Helium renamed itself to Nova Labs. And I feel like it was a strategic thing. Again, I'm not sure exactly, but it is the representation of Helium. As a foundation, it's one thing with governance and so on, and then you have the actual company behind it that's building and looking for rewards. Remember, they can have a very profitable business here from a organizational perspective, right? Because they actually have use case, okay, and providing mobile services to end users. It could be a very lucrative business as well. So you have to understand that. We have Hacker One, we have Chief Marketing Officer, and all tech related. Okay, so all very tech related marketing solutions. So he's an overall tech business guy, which knows the industry. He seems like he's well versed in the industry in engineering, computers, electrical, this and that. So great talent there. Then we have the CTO of Nova Labs, founded team behind Helium. Okay, so that's good. Mark. We got senior principal engineer at Yahoo. All said. That's it. That's all you need. Good. Few others. Qualcomm. Great. Good stuff. Let's move on. Lots of talent here. And this is all I was able to really get from the team, like, as core as I could. Helium, 11 years, executive VP, president business development, and Basho Technologies, Syracuse University. Been around for a while here with the Helium team, which is great. Not much information, but it is what it is. So far, that's all I could get from the team. So, the team itself, from a team perspective, seems to be very, very very strength, lots of strength. I was able to get some information about the core team, which we'll talk about in a second, meaning the founders. But we'll get to it throughout the summary. But generally speaking, guys, the project itself is well established. Now the question is, could it pick up some more hype? And it got its hype already in the past. We saw the price do very well. Could it go for another round? Okay, guys. So as you guys know, I released that deep dive infographic. Okay, so let's take a look at it. Let's do a quick overview. Helium, let's see its ecosystem. So its ecosystem's comprised, I like to look at it as three things. Okay, and you can add more on the VHNT because you're gonna have V mobiles and V IoTs, but it's too much here, guys. And this is a level of confusion at the same time, but at the same time, it's part of their ecosystem. So from an ecosystem perspective, it's perfect. It's great. They got their Internet of Things going on. They're in their long range aspects of their connectivity, their mobile, their 5G mobile coverage. Everything's great. And even their token, their governance token that they got. So you put in your HNTs, you get these VHNTs, and based on that, you're able to vote. And it's non-transferable, meaning that you're not trading that. It's not like it's a tradable thing. Okay, so it's just basically being able to use tokens to actively participate. From that perspective, it's a 10 out of 10 from their ecosystem. What else could we ask for? But you start to ask yourself, why do we need so many tokens? Why is it necessary to separate the mobile from the IoT and all this and that? It just gets complicated. I understand that it looks good and it subdivides, it segregates all of it to get, in such a way where it can be analyzed and treated as separate identities, because it technically kind of is different, offers a different value proposition, but could it be argued that it doesn't? It's still a connectivity thing. Okay, so it is what it is. And again, it's based on perspective, and what I've seen in the past is multi-token systems don't work, and history has shown that. Okay, so I'm not making it up. It is what it is. Utility, DAO, governance, for sure governance. I don't know if it's a complete DAO just yet, but it's definitely governance involved. Purchase data credits, that's what you can use it for, and reserve assets. So it's a reserve asset for the Helium network. Now, purchase data credits means is that when you want to use Helium, you got to purchase these data credits, right? And when you purchase them, you're using effective currency, whatever it is, a fiat currency. And then with these data credits, you can purchase Helium services. And then as you purchase those Helium services, you're going to use their services. And then then there's a burning, and then there's a credits, and just a cycle of a recycling of utility, which is great. The thing is that there's a little bit of that ambiguity with a lot of the utility of the tokens themselves with the multi-token system. So this is where I'm going to dock things, just very little, but it is what it is. I've seen the confusion. Roadmap, 3 out of 10, because there's no real hardcore roadmap that's clear, concise, issued by the team. There's the government proposals and all of that. As I showed you, it's all there, clean, but it can be confusing. It can be daunting for a newcomer to come in. A lot of newcomers, all they want to see is by the end of the quarter, we are going to try to achieve this, this, and that. That's all people want. And if you can't come out saying that, then what happens is that you lose a little bit of the focus, particularly when you don't have the founders, maybe completely 100%, transparent with their history. Like for me, I see that they don't have a LinkedIn page, and it's not necessary, but it is beneficial. Okay, especially when you are looking for a trust-based system, where the team is going, where are they going? A roadmap is supposed to answer that. The team is going in this direction. That's why it's called a roadmap. No general Helium roadmap. Helium Mobile does have an outdated roadmap that I was able to find, and I chose not to include it because it was outdated and it's specific to Helium, and it seemed very unofficial. But it is what it is, guys. I feel like that aspect of things needs to be cleaned up and cleared up. And in fact, you can't even engage too well with the community to gauge demand for this, because their socials are really tied up into Reddit pages and X communities, which don't really work very well from that perspective. The team is doxed for pretty much doxed. Nova Labs is doxed. You know what Nova Lab is. It adds a layer of confusion, but it's not that confusing. You just got to know that Nova Labs was the old Helium Inc., the whole old Helium company, and they just renamed it to Nova Labs, and now they're the ones that are continuing to work on the tech behind Helium. Very easy, not too complicated. Game dev, Napster, engineering experience, lots of that. So you got to understand the team. Meaning the founders have game development and Napster involvement and lots of engineering experience. So that's a good thing to see. So 10 out of 10 from the team, and all the talent that I just showed you just right now, even beyond the founders, is great. Okay, so pretty good team there. The socials, this is where it's a little bit iffy, but they make up for it in other aspects, right? So they have 223 X followers, which is with low engagement and very systematic engagement, no more than 100 likes per post, which kind of keeps everything very stagnant. Even if it goes up and down, at least it looks very natural. Discord and Telegram not active. They decided to abandon ship on that and redirect everybody to X communities and Reddit. I think that was a really bad choice, but the blog is kept up to date. Now, look, one could say, Mike, maybe you should give them less. I'd say as long as they could keep up their X engagement, which right now they're not really there, and you got to admit the market's not really in favor of any engagement for that matter. And they might be able to get some good engagement on Reddit. Again, I don't see it to be a very popular thing, but it is what it is as far as crypto community goes. And that's it. And as long as they keep on going with their blog from an educational perspective, it might be very useful. Look, I think it was a bit generous with the 7 out of 10, but it is what it is. Tokenomics. All new tokens will come in from hotspot and rewards. Okay, so that's important to understand. I apologize, guys. Let me just go back to that. All new tokens will come from hotspots and rewards, which means that it's not like it's a very rewarding structure, in the sense that you're going to see tokens enter based on the utility, the use of the network. That's a perfect recipe, because that's how they keep everything in equilibrium. Remember, they burn and mint equilibrium that they got going on. Foundation tokens will also enter distribution based on foundation and governance. So the foundation has some tokens, and again, how is that going to be distributed is based on the foundation and governance. So people are gonna be able to vote on how those tokens get released. There's no real clarity as how the foundation itself is gonna earn rewards. I know that they hold some nodes themselves, some actual beacons and things to earn. I understand that, but is there any other ways? Are they taking a cut off of transactional volume? It doesn't say that, and I don't think it's the case. Guys, if you know something that I couldn't find, feel free to reach out and leave me a comment in the comment section below. 10 out of 10 for relationships, guys. Lots of them, to the point that I was like, I'm just gonna keep it simple here. They got Dawn, Dish Network, T-Mobile, AT&T, Movistar, Nimberlink, and Arduino. From a hardware perspective, imagine making your own nodes with an Arduino. For those of you guys that know what that is, perfect, guys. 10 out of 10. Covering all kinds of different aspects and relationships and partnerships that you may want to qualify. Exchanges, we have Coinbase, Mexi, Bybit, KuCoin, BitNex. Guys, if you want to know more about BitNex, I got a link in the description below. They're offering a great bonus right now for traders if you're interested. And no Binance. Do we ever get a Binance listing? Who knows? But as of now, no Binance. A Binance listing might make this thing wake up a little bit. But it is what it is. That's what we wait for. If you're looking for to trade an exchange listing, all you're waiting for is Binance. So lots of liquidity, lots of good stuff here for them. The price has been a little bit fluctuating. I did release a video on Friday on HNT because the market structure looks primed, looks great. But it is what it is. You have to understand that its market cap is at about $439 million market cap. So, it's small-ish. It's not too big. It's not too small, but it's small-ish. Good volume could be a little bit better, trading volume and so on. And we talked about the max supply of 223 million. So it is what it is, guys. And I apologize if the number is a little bit off, because when I did create the infographic, obviously we get volatility in this space. You never know what the price is going to be in a few hours. That's how it is. So let's take a look at my verdict, guys. Obviously, you know that I have to keep things very clean, transparent, and ultimately talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And to be honest, I expected a little bit more, confusion based on all the dual tokens, the multi-token system, and all the tiers and the migration and the tokenomics. But it's quite clear. It's quite clear. It's a DPIN, Solana, IoT, Web3, telecom, telecommunication. It's Internet of Things, as I mentioned. I think that's something that, for me personally, is very interesting, because I believe that's the future, especially with regards to collecting information. HNT was launched with the Helium network in 2019. Okay, there was no pre-mine, so that's a very important concept, because a lot of us are probably thinking, Mike, but where are the token allocation? Well, they're all out there, right? They're all out there in distribution. Right now, the rest of them that are going to be entering in circulation are the ones that are going to be a reward based on rewards, right? And those rewards are going to be halved every 2 years. So HNT follows the predictable 2-year halving schedule, reducing emissions over time. Everything is very, very clear and transparent. Proof of coverage validates whether the hotspots is providing legitimate wireless coverage. This is where they earn, based on that, commitment. Burn and mint principles still apply. HNT is burned to create data credits, which are DCs, while sub-DAO tokens like the like the sub-DAOs are the IoTs and the mobile tokens. So basically, tokens like IoT are minted to reward network participants. Tokens are burned and generate data credits, in this case the DCs, and minted to reward hotspot operators. So there's just this cycle of minting and burning and minting and burning, and using DCs as a currency to actually pay for services on the Helium network. Okay, so tokenomics are subject to change based on Helium improvement proposals, the HIPs. This is important because that has to do with the governance, and governance has a strong weighting on what happens next. That's why there's no roadmap, and a lot of projects that run this way don't have a very clear roadmap. It is unclear how much of the revenue is received by the Helium Foundation. This is something that I wish a clear statement would be there, saying the Helium Foundation does not get any, or does get a certain percentage. No, just clarity would be great, just to reaffirm. Nova Labs or SubDAO treasuries. Do these guys, any of these categories, get anything from the revenue, right, that is generated? I'm curious, and there's no clarity there. It does have a history of false partnerships and claims and lawsuits. This is where I'm expecting a lot of people to come out and really roast Helium, and including give me their feedback about this deep dive. Guys, it's about that, sometimes you just need to move on, and just look forward. If it's valid, the information that they are currently distributing is valid. They have some great partnerships nowadays and relationships, and these ones could actually be valid and to the point that it could actually be very crucial opportunity for Helium. Okay, so you got to be very open-minded nowadays, particularly with this crypto space, and the fact that there was also a lot of ambiguity within this space. Also, HNT with the market cap of Jasmine. Guys, this was a tough choice. How do I compare Helium? Now you have to understand that this is not a target. This is not a um, a prediction of any sort. This is me projecting what could happen. Now, look, this is a very poor projection. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be critical on myself here because it's very difficult to look at HNT and compare it to any other project. Why? Because there's not many projects doing what Helium is doing. It's one of like none. There's no many. It's one of one here. So how do we compare? Now, the only one that kind of caught my interest or made that connectivity is Jasmine. And the reason B is because it's the Internet of Things. And you guys know I'm kind of interested in that topic. And when I see HNT connecting different, hotspots and Internet of Things, does this also mean that Jasmine's in a very similar spot? Maybe not. Maybe not completely. Because Jasmine's more interested in data collection, which maybe HNT might do in the future. But it is what it is. Well, right now, what I'm looking at is how do I compare HNT with any other project if there is none? And not only that, how do I know what market cap it could achieve based on the total market cap that we have in this space? It's a quite difficult one. So even if it caught up to Jasmine, it is still a 1x, which means it could double. And then that means it's going to get to about, $800 million market cap, maybe a little bit more. But when I start looking at the HNT price from how it behaved previously, and without even considering previous highs and all-time highs, which we're going to talk about the chart in a second, you're looking at a $7 HNTs. Okay, it's modest. It's possible. It's actually, in fact, if you consider the fact that we are still looking for an alt season and a bull run, maybe this is still modest. But then if you look at percentages, guys, this is still a great move if this happens. And this is why this is called a projection. I don't know if it's going to go there. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you the future. But if it's going to achieve what it has achieved in a non-alt season environment, can you imagine what it will achieve what it will achieve in an alt season environment? It might even go way higher than $7. And again, I'm not trying to bring in that FOMO or anything like that. I'm just trying to be real about that. And I'll show you on a chart exactly what I mean. I give the project 7 out of 10. And just because there's some loose ends here that kind of like need a bit of attention. But generally speaking, guys, what interests me most about HNT is its possibility to be the first mover advantage, to gain the first mover advantage within a narrative of crypto that is not tapped whatsoever. And if we happen to be one of those individuals to benefit from the first mover advantage, guys, you will not regret it. This is where speculation is at its best. And this is how it works here in this space. Speculative technologies, and then you speculate on possibilities. All right, guys. I know you're here to talk about price action, so let's begin. Let's see what's going on here with the HNT price, because ultimately, guys, it's been on a bit of a downtrend the last little while. But as you can see, if you look at history has shown that HNT did come up from the top, came down quite hard, and is now looking for a fair value. The question is, has it hit its bottom, or are we going to go for another move to the upside? Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. So technically speaking, as you see here, we got lots of volume within this range, starting here, tons of volume. One may argue that it might be sell pressure, buying it up, selling it off, buying it up, selling it off. That's fine. It is what it is. If you're able to trade this range like all the market maker price action here, that's fine. That's an opportunity for yourself. What's most important to me now is all the volume in this level is leading to a downtrend right here that could eventually lead for another move. And the bigger opportunity for me as a trader, as an investor, as a speculator is what happens if and when we break above $9.52. I put a projection at $7, guys. And like I'm saying, I'm being very modest here. Because you think, I'm not even talking about local highs. Okay, previous highs, all-time highs, price discovery, we'll talk about that in a second. but I'm talking about local highs based on this range, on the range of which we might be able to really hit a target of $9.50 before we hit a resistance again. Now, the reason why I chose 7 because it's slightly downward sloping. We do have a little bit of a node of volume right here around $7. If we can catch an entry right around this level and exit at $7, look at the percentage. The percentage is great. The percentage allows you to take half on the double. Half on the double is a great way to reduce your risk while still giving yourself exposure to continuation to the upside. If you do quick maths, half on the double is taking your initial investment off the table and letting the house money run, risk-free position. That's what I like to see. That's what I like. Now, again, it all depends on your convictions. That's why deep dives are great. But from a trader's perspective, this is a lucrative moment. Why? Because you're buying range lows, pretty much range lows. Could we come down further? 100%. Could we be forming a bottom here? Could be, and it does look like it's possible. So let's quickly address this. This is the absolute invalidation, meaning that if we break below $1.22, guys, HNT is going to be in the pit of discovery. Look at this dip discovery coming down into the abyss. Not a place where I like to see the price go, not a place where I want to be bullish, not a place where I want to be totally positioned for major moves. And the reason being because it needs to reclaim historical price action in order for me to be confident. But as of now, we're still okay. Why? Because we're dripping down to hunt liquidity, and all of a sudden we got a huge node of volume right into this level with a point of control. So that means that there's market participation, activity, action. Okay, so action, what is the action telling us? Is there absorption of the supply? Or is the price falling while the bulls are absorbing all the sell pressure? That's a sign of strength. Guys, and if you missed out on my video on Friday, I came out and showed you this structure. I was afraid that we would start waking up here, and I wanted to make sure that we had this chart structure already in mind. Okay, before we get into the lower time frames, because that was a lower time frame structure, I want to take a look at the momentum. Now, I want to quickly show you that if you see the purple line, that the purple line on this momentum oscillator, just let me get this reposition. If you look at the purple line, it got overbought right around here, okay? And if you look at the corresponding price action, that is right around here. Then we came down for another high that came up with a lower high, and that is right around this level, okay? So right here, it is still downtrending. Then we keep on falling, and it's still downtrending. At what point did we get a divergence, right? So we didn't really get a proper divergence on these peaks. So this is a convergence, right? It's literally where supply and demand, which is price, defined by price, essentially is following momentum very nicely, And for me, that's an opportunity to suggest that the price didn't really get a sign of divergence, which is usually something where we see the price fly up with a bit of froth or even melt up, right? Where price keeps on going, where momentum is already shifted downwards, and the price keeps on going up without the support of momentum and even volume. And that never really happened here. So this is what leads me to believe that it could be possible that this is done. Now, if you start looking, or I mean, it's done dipping. What if you start looking at these two tops? Yes, there's divergence. Higher highs on the price action, lower highs on the momentum. Sure, but in that case, it already got its follow through. And right now, we're on a descending type of drip. And these drips usually lead to bullish reactions to the upside. And if you look at the momentum, we're stuck in the chop zone. We didn't get completely oversold, but look at this expansion, and that expansion. These expansions are weaker than the first one, which means that they're getting weaker over time. That's a sign of divergence. And even if you look at what's happening here, lower low, lower lower, lower low, look at the purple line, is moving upwards. That's class A bullish divergence as well. So we're getting a lot of confluence and divergence here. Now, if you look at the trend oscillator here on the 4-day, I'm looking at the 4-day because I want to consolidate a lot of the noise. We'll quickly get down to the 1 hour soon. Divergence right here. Divergence all into here. All of this, multiple drives of divergence, which suggests that maybe we could start looking for a reversal. Okay, so let me clean this up. Let's start going on the daily. So we look at the big picture, because again, when the structures are so big, the best way to kind of look at what the chart is trying to offer you is just zoom out and go on the higher time frames. Now we can zoom in and look at the daily. What interests me on the daily is this structure right here. Okay, a lot. And the reason why is because, again, the daily showed us, the 4 days showed us that we are on a downtrend and getting divergence. We are at critical levels, almost out of which where this trend line needs to be respected. We can drip down further. It's possible that we come down to $1.22, but at the current moment, I am interested in seeing what happens here. Why? Because we not only did we get the swing failure, we came down for a lower low and the bears couldn't sustain that move. We got a quick recovery to the upside and now we're consolidating. We even got the back test confirmation and popped right back up. So I'm based on weekend price action, which is what we're seeing here in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, right into these last few candles. It could mean that by next week we could start seeing some follow through. And why do I call this follow through? Well, because if you start looking at the price action, even from within here, this local price action, you start looking at the momentum starting right around here, it's fairly flat, which means that's a divergence. It's a class C bullish divergence, right? It's not really, following through to the downside. It's fairly flat. It's not like we got oversold or anything, to the point that even if you look at right here from here to here, it's a class C with this double bottom. Okay, and then all of a sudden we come up with momentum and volatility pushed up, and this thing didn't really, it's holding up very nice while volatility is coming down. And as long as we do not come down for a lower low, this might be a level of which we might see a market structure that suggests a change of character, and it starts to look really good. Okay, so just keep an eye on it, right? This is very, very, very early levels, but very nice levels. Okay, so let's get rid of the oscillators here for a second. By the way, guys, if you want to know more about those oscillators, it's called Synergy Signal. You can check them out in the links in the description. But this failure pattern is beautiful, because if we can start breaking above $2.73 right around here, you see that there's the beginning of a bit of weakness. And based on that weakness, we can reclaim some of this price action, or we can come up here and get rejected, right? But nonetheless, when you start doing this, right, and then you start going this way, this is a transition, right? This is it could be a transition. In order to confirm the transition, we need one more piece of data. We got the higher lows. We're currently flagging out here, which is great. We need a higher high. A higher low, a higher high will basically confirm the pivot or the transitionary phase over for follow through to the upside. And then we can start looking for targets, which my first target would be here right around $3.80. I would front run that. 375 is a great level. Take your profit, walk away. Stop losses right under here, maybe about $2. Really, the best stop loss would be right down here, about 170, maybe a little lower, 165, and just call it a day. And then slowly build your position if we come down and improve your entry. But ultimately, guys, when you see things like this with good volume, it's very likely that eventually we get a continuation to the upside. But we have to be aware that the overall target to hunt for max pain is now. Why? Because you got the most amount of volume. Even if we broke below, there's not a lot of volume down here. There's not a lot, but there is still some liquidity right down here. We can come down for that sweep. So it's very difficult here because we're still on a downtrend. Right now we're smoking fat bowls of opium, hoping for a reversal of this trend. And this could be it. And I'm trying to track it, but we're still below the 200 daily. But these are great levels. Again, if you start zooming out, guys, you're buying range lows. You're not buying tops. You're buying the bottoms. You're buying range lows. You're buying fear. And guys, don't forget the fear and greed index on all crypto right now is very fearful. And if you're bullish on speculative technology, HNT might be the tech for you, right? So HNT is quite interesting that way. All right, guys, we did pretty good. If you appreciate this deep dive, do the channel a massive, massive favor. Slap the like button if you really appreciate it. I'm going to be live tonight at 8 p.m. EST talking about crypto news and price action. If you have any projects you want me to cover, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. You can hit me up on the socials. The links are in the description. Better yet, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Take care, guys. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.